Craig Holloway laughed.
You skipped your interview to fix a flat tire for her? Get out, black guy can't even show up on time! Go fix tires somewhere else.
Franklin Sutton didn't look away. He held Craig's stare for 3 full seconds.
She was stuck in the rain. I'd do it again.
Borrowed suit, grease on one knee, rain still dripping off his collar. 11 people in that lobby. Not one opened their mouth. He turned around, walked out, got into a truck with 213,000 miles on it, and drove away. But here's the thing nobody in that building knew. The woman whose tire he changed? Her last name was on the building they were all sitting in. And what happened next? Craig Holloway never saw it coming. Let's rewind. 6 hours earlier. Franklin Sutton woke up at 5:45 a.m. the way he'd woken up every morning for 6 years in the Army. No alarm, no snooze, just eyes open, feet on the floor. His apartment sat on the east side of Charlotte, North Carolina. 1 bedroom, 1 window that faced a parking lot. The kind of place where the hallway always smelled like someone else's dinner. But Franklin kept his unit clean, military clean. Bed made tight enough to bounce a quarter. Boots lined up by the door. Counter wiped down. No dishes in the sink. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror in a white undershirt and ran a hand over his fade. Still fresh. His barber owed him a favor. Small things mattered today. Because today was the day. First callback in 5 months. 5 months of sending resumes into silence. 5 months of, we'll keep your application on file, which is corporate for lose our number. 5 months of watching his savings account bleed out like a slow leak in a tire. He opened the closet, pushed past 2 work jackets and a pair of coveralls. In the back, wrapped in a dry cleaning bag, hung a navy blue suit. Not his. His neighbor Terrence had lent it to him. Terrence wore it to his cousin's wedding last year, said Franklin could borrow it as long as he didn't sweat through it. Franklin pulled it out, held it up against his chest. The sleeves were about 2 inches too long. The shoulders were a little wide. But it was clean, pressed, and it was all he had. He set up the ironing board, not because the suit was wrinkled, but because ironing calmed him. The hiss of steam, the smell of hot fabric. Routine. Control. The things the Army had drilled into his hands. His phone buzzed on the counter. Video call. He picked it up. Diane's face filled the screen. His younger sister, 27, nursing student at a program in Raleigh, 2 years in, working nights at a hospital cafeteria to cover what her loans didn't. She had their mother's eyes and their father's stubbornness. Let me see the suit. Franklin turned the phone around. Oh, that's clean. You're gonna walk in there looking like money. I'm gonna walk in there looking like Terrence. Shut up, she grinned. You nervous? Nah. Liar, he smiled. First real smile of the morning. Listen, Diane said, leaning closer to the screen. You know more about engines and buildings and machines than half the guys walking around with engineering degrees. You kept an entire motor pool running in the desert for 3 years. You're not going in there to beg. You're going in there to show them what they'd be lucky to get. Franklin didn't say anything for a second. Then, appreciate you, Di. Don't appreciate me. Go get the job. She hung up. He finished ironing, put the suit on, looked at himself in the mirror, rolled the sleeves once, too casual, unrolled them, left them long, slid the resume, 1 page printed at the library yesterday for 30 cents, into a manila folder. Breakfast was a bowl of cereal eaten standing up over the kitchen sink. No milk. He'd run out 2 days ago and hadn't replaced it. Dry Cheerios. He chewed slowly and stared out the window at the parking lot. A billboard across the street read, Asford Property Group, Building Charlotte's Future. Big white letters. Stock photo of a skyline. He'd seen it every day for 3 months and never once connected it to anything in his life. Today, he had an interview there. He grabbed his keys, locked the door, walked down 2 flights of stairs because the elevator had been broken since March, got into his truck, a 2009 Silverado with 213,000 miles, a cracked taillight, and an engine that still purred because Franklin rebuilt it himself, twice. He pulled out of the lot, headed west toward I-85. The sky was gray, but not raining yet. He turned on the radio, gospel station, listened for 2 minutes, then turned it off. He started rehearsing. My name is Franklin Sutton. I'm a former Army mechanic with 6 years of experience in vehicle and facility maintenance. He stumbled on the next part, started over. I'm detail-oriented, dependable, and I take pride in… Nah, too stiff. He tried again, softer this time. I just want a chance to show you what I can do. He nodded to himself. That one felt true. The first raindrop hit the windshield at 3:02 p.m. By 3:14 p.m., the rain wasn't rain anymore. It was a wall. Franklin leaned forward in his seat, both hands on the wheel, wipers screaming on high and still losing the fight. I-85 south of Charlotte. 4 lanes of trucks throwing spray, brake lights smearing red through the downpour. His phone sat on the passenger seat. Google Maps showed 26 minutes to destination. Interview at 4 o'clock. The math was tight. Not comfortable, but doable. Then he saw her. A silver Lexus ES, maybe a 2020, maybe newer, sitting crooked on the shoulder, hazard lights pulsing orange through the gray. The front passenger tire was flat, not low, flat, rim nearly kissing asphalt. And standing beside the car, in the rain, was a woman, white-haired, mid-60s, wearing a cream-colored blouse that was now soaked through and clinging to her shoulders. No umbrella, no raincoat. Just standing there, one hand raised, waving at traffic that blew past her at 70 miles an hour without even tapping the brakes. Franklin's eyes flicked to the clock. 3:18. Keep driving. He pressed the gas, moved to the center lane, put distance between himself and the shoulder. You can't be late. You cannot be late. Not today. He checked the rearview mirror. She was still standing there, arms still up, cars still passing. Then she slipped. Just her left foot slid on the wet grass beside the guardrail. She caught herself, one hand on the car, but for a second she was off balance, and Franklin saw something he recognized. The look of someone who'd been standing too long with no help coming. He'd seen that look in the mirror plenty of times. He took the next exit, looped under the overpass, came back north, pulled in behind the Lexus and cut the engine. He stepped out into the rain. Ma'am, you need a hand? The woman turned. Her eyes were red, not crying, just wind and water and exhaustion. She blinked at him like she wasn't sure he was real. Oh, thank you. My phone died and I've been out here. I don't even know how long. It's all right. Let me take a look. Franklin walked to the flat tire, knelt down. Rain soaked through the knee of Terrence's suit instantly. He felt it, cold and heavy, but he didn't flinch. He popped the trunk. Spare was there. Jack was there. Lug wrench, there. He worked fast, the way he used to work on Humvees in motor pools where speed wasn't optional. Loosen, jack, remove, mount, lower, tighten. Star pattern. His hands moved from memory. The woman stood behind him, arms crossed against the rain. You've done this before. Franklin glanced up, half smiled. Once or twice. Where are you headed? You look like you're dressed for something. He paused, just a beat. An appointment. He didn't say interview, Didn't say the only callback I've gotten since November. Didn't put his weight on her shoulders. Just an appointment. He finished in 11 minutes, stood up, wiped his hands on his pants. There was grease on the right knee now, dark and obvious against the navy fabric. He looked at it, looked away.
You're all set, ma'am. Spare's good for about 50 miles. Enough to get to a shop. The woman opened her purse, pulled out two $100 bills, held them out.
Please, you've done me such a kindness.
No, ma'am, I appreciate it, but I can't take that.
Please, you're soaked, and you've ruined your—
Wouldn't feel right. He said it gently, firm but gentle, the way you close a door without slamming it. She looked at him for a long moment.
What's your name?
Franklin.
Franklin what?
He hesitated. Then, Sutton.
Franklin Sutton.
She said it like she was writing it down inside her head.
I'm Eleanor. Thank you, Franklin. Truly.
He nodded, walked back to his truck, sat down, closed the door. The clock read 4:12 p.m. The interview was at 4. He stared at the steering wheel. Rain hammered the roof. The grease stain on his knee was already setting. Terrence's suit. The only suit he had access to in the world. He pulled back onto I-85 anyway.
Eleanor Ashford pulled into the driveway of her home at 5:40 p.m.
It wasn't a mansion, not the kind you see in movies, but it was the kind of house that whispered money instead of shouting it. Stone exterior, old magnolia trees lining the drive, a porch with white columns that had been repainted every 3 years since 1987. The kind of place that had been in a family long enough to stop impressing the people who lived there.
She walked inside, still damp, and her housekeeper, Rosa, met her at the door with a towel. Mrs. Ashford, what happened to you? Flat tire on 85. In this rain? Did you call AAA? Phone died.
Eleanor draped the towel over her shoulders.
A young man stopped, changed it for me, in the pouring rain. Wouldn't take a cent.
Rosa raised her eyebrows.
Nobody stops anymore. He did.
Eleanor sat down at the kitchen table. She was still thinking about his hands, the way they moved, fast and sure, like someone who'd done real work his whole life. And that suit. Too big for him. Borrowed, she was almost certain. He was on his way to something important, and he stopped anyway. She couldn't shake it. The next morning, Tuesday, her son arrived for their weekly breakfast.
Gerald Ashford, 42, CEO of Ashford Property Group.
He had his father's build, tall, broad-shouldered, and his mother's patience, though lately the patience had been running thin. The company managed 31 commercial properties across the Charlotte metro area, and his head of facilities maintenance had quit without notice 10 days ago. No transition, no replacement, just a resignation email sent at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Gerald was drowning in operational fires.
He sat across from Eleanor.
Coffee, toast, scrambled eggs Rosa had made. The kitchen smelled like butter and normalcy, which was exactly what Gerald needed, and exactly what he wasn't getting at the office.
You look tired, Eleanor said.
I'm fine.
You're not fine. Eat your eggs.
He smiled. Barely. Eleanor told him about the tire, about the rain, about the man in the borrowed suit who knelt in the mud and wouldn't take $200.
His name was Franklin Sutton, she said. He had hands like someone who knows how to fix things. Not guess. Fix.
Gerald listened, but his mind was half on the staffing crisis. 22 properties without a maintenance coordinator. Contractors bleeding him on emergency rates. 2 HVAC systems failing at the same time in 2 different buildings.
That's a good story, Mom. It's not a story. It happened.
He nodded, sipped his coffee.
Later that afternoon, Gerald sat in his office on the 14th floor of the Ashford building on South Tryon Street, the same building Franklin had walked into,
and been thrown out of the day before. Craig Holloway knocked, came in with a tablet and a short list. 4 candidates for the facilities coordinator role, all credentialed, 2 with 10+ years, one's available immediately. Gerald scrolled through the names. Solid, expensive, corporate. Then he stopped. Did we have any other applicants recently? Walk-ins, junior level, anything? Craig shrugged. One guy yesterday showed up late, soaking wet. Looked like he'd been changing oil in a ditch. I sent him home. Name? Craig checked his tablet. Sutton, Franklin Sutton. Gerald set his coffee down. Sutton. The name his mother had said at breakfast. The man in the rain. The borrowed suit. The hands that knew how to fix things. Gerald looked at Craig for a long moment. Pull his file. I want to see his resume. Craig blinked. Sir, he showed up 25 minutes late in a stained... Pull his file, Craig. 3 days passed. Franklin spent them the way he'd spent every week for the past 5 months, filling out applications at his kitchen table, refreshing his email every hour, and pretending he wasn't counting the days since his last real paycheck. On Wednesday, he fixed a neighbor's garbage disposal for free. On Thursday, he drove for a delivery app, 11 hours, $86 after gas. On Friday morning, he sat on the edge of his bed and stared at the grease stain on Terrence's suit, which had faded from dark black to a stubborn gray-brown, despite 3 rounds of dish soap, baking soda, and Diane's YouTube tutorial sent at midnight. The stain wasn't coming out. He'd have to tell Terrence. His phone rang at 10:14 a.m. Unknown number. Charlotte area code. He almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually spam, extended warranties, student loan scams, robocalls about things he couldn't afford. He picked up on the 4th ring. Mr. Sutton? This is Rebecca from Ashford Property Group's Human Resources Department. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Gerald Ashford. He'd like to invite you in for a conversation. Would Monday at 10 work for you? Franklin didn't speak for 3 seconds. Mr. Sutton? Yes. Yes, ma'am. Monday at 10. I'll be there. He hung up, stared at the phone. Then he called Diane. They called back. What? Who? Ashford. The company. They want me to come in Monday. Franklin, are you serious right now? Dead serious. Diane screamed so loud he had to pull the phone away from his ear. He laughed. A real laugh, the kind that loosens something in your chest. Saturday morning, he took the suit to a laundromat that had a stain treatment service. $8 he probably shouldn't have spent. The woman behind the counter looked at the knee, looked at him, and said, "Baking soda and white vinegar, overnight, then cold wash." Diane's method, confirmed by a professional. By Sunday night, the stain was gone. Not perfect. If you knew where to look, you could see a faint shadow. But under office lighting, it would pass. Monday morning, 9:15 a.m. Franklin pulled into the Ashford Property Group parking garage 45 minutes early. He sat in his truck with the engine off, rehearsing nothing. He was done rehearsing. Whatever came out of his mouth today would be the truth, and the truth would either be enough or it wouldn't. At 9:50, he walked in. The same lobby, the same receptionist. She looked up, and something crossed her face. Recognition, maybe. She didn't say anything about last time, just picked up the phone, made a quiet call, and said, "Someone will be right down." But it wasn't Craig Holloway who came down. A woman in a gray blazer appeared. "Mr. Sutton, I'm Rebecca. We spoke on the phone. Please follow me." She didn't take him to the 2nd floor where the interviews happened. She took him to the elevator. Pressed 14, the executive floor. The doors opened to a different world. Quiet, carpeted, glass walls looking out over downtown Charlotte, cranes and skyline and money in every direction. Franklin's boots, His only dress shoes had a cracked sole, so he wore his cleanest boots, sank into carpet that probably cost more per square foot than his rent. Rebecca led him to a corner office, knocked once, opened the door. Gerald Ashford stood up from behind his desk, tall, gray at the temples, shirt sleeves rolled to the forearms. A man who dressed well but didn't hide behind his clothes. He extended his hand. "Franklin, thanks for coming in. Sit down. Coffee?" "Yes, sir, thank you." Gerald poured 2 cups himself. Didn't call an assistant. Handed one to Franklin and sat down, not behind his desk, but in the chair across from him. Eye level. No barrier between them. "I'm going to be straight with you," Gerald said. "I'm not offering you the job you applied for." Franklin's stomach dropped. He kept his face still. "I'm offering you something bigger." Gerald leaned forward. "We manage 31 commercial properties across Charlotte. Office buildings, retail centers, mixed-use developments. My facilities maintenance coordinator quit 2 weeks ago with no notice. I need someone who can oversee maintenance operations across all 31 sites. Scheduling, vendor management, inspections, emergency response. It's a senior role." Franklin set his coffee down. "Mr. Ashford, I have to be honest with you. I don't have a degree. I've never worked in a corporate environment. My experience is military. 6 years as a vehicle and facility mechanic, motor pool supervisor for a 4-man team, 2 deployments, 0 major equipment failures under your watch." Gerald tapped the folder on his desk, Franklin's resume. 1 page. Printed at the library for 30 cents. "I read your file. With respect, sir, most companies see a resume like mine and throw it out. I'm not most companies." Gerald paused. "My mother told me what you did. The tire, the rain. She said you were late for something important and you stopped anyway. She said you wouldn't take her money." Another pause. "She said you wouldn't even tell her why you were in a hurry." Franklin said nothing. "That tells me more about who you are than any degree on a wall." Gerald slid a folder across the table. Inside, an offer letter. Franklin opened it, read the number, read it again. His hands trembled, just slightly, just enough that he pressed his palms flat on his knees to stop it. It was more money than he'd ever made. More than the Army. More than any job he'd applied for in 5 months. Benefits, health insurance, a company vehicle. "Can I ask you something, sir?" "Go ahead." "Why are you doing this?" Gerald looked at him steadily. "Because I need someone I can trust. And trust doesn't come with a resume." Franklin looked down at the offer letter one more time. Then he looked up. "When do I start?" His first day was Wednesday. He arrived at 6:30 a.m., 90 minutes before his shift. New uniform, navy polo with the Ashford crest on the chest. His name stitched above the pocket in white thread. F. Sutton. He stood in the bathroom mirror of his apartment and looked at that name on his chest for a long time. The first property he visited was a 12-story office complex on Independence Boulevard. He walked the mechanical room with the building's lead technician, a guy named Davis who'd been there 11 years and had the tired eyes of someone who'd stopped expecting help from management. Franklin spotted it in 14 minutes. A compressor on the rooftop HVAC unit, running hot, pulling amps above rating, bearings grinding. The kind of failure that doesn't announce itself until it costs you a $40,000 replacement and an entire floor of tenants without air conditioning in August. "How long has this been like this?" Franklin asked. Davis shrugged. "Couple months, maybe. I flagged it. Nobody came." Franklin pulled out his phone, took photos, logged the issue, ordered the part before lunch. The previous coordinator had missed it for 3 months. Franklin fixed it by Friday. That Sunday, he called Diane. He told her everything. The tire, the rain, Eleanor, the rejection, the callback, the corner office, the offer letter, all of it. Diane was quiet for a long time. Then, very softly, "You changed a stranger's tire, and it changed your whole life." She was crying. He could hear it. The small, wet catch in her breathing. He pressed the phone against his ear and closed his eyes. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Some moments don't need words. They just need someone on the other end of the line who understands exactly what it cost to get here. For the first time in a long time, Franklin Sutton had a rhythm. Weeks 2 through 6 moved like a machine he'd built himself. Steady, calibrated, no wasted motion. He woke at 5:30, drove his company truck, a white Ford F-150 with the Ashford logo on the door, clean and new and nothing like the Silverado rusting in his parking spot. Hit the first property by 7 o'clock, last property by 4:30, home by 6 o'clock, dinner, reports, sleep, repeat. He built a preventive maintenance schedule from scratch, color-coded, property by property, system by system. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, fire suppression, roofing, elevators. Every unit tagged with its last service date, its next service date, and a risk rating Franklin created himself based on age, load, and failure history. By week 4, the schedule had already caught 2 more problems before they became emergencies. A water heater corroding from the inside at a retail plaza on South Boulevard. A parking garage drainage line backing up at a mixed-use building near Noda. Gerald's operations team ran the numbers at the end of the first quarter. Franklin's preventive system had saved Ashford Property Group an estimated $200,000 in emergency repair costs. $200,000. One man, no degree. The field crews noticed. Not all at once. Respect from tradesmen isn't given, it's earned with your hands. But by week 3, the calls changed. Instead of the new guy, it was Franklin. Instead of management sent someone, it was, let me check with Sutton. One man in particular, Earl Moore, 58, white, master electrician, 20 years at Ashford, became a quiet ally. Earl didn't talk much, didn't compliment much. But one afternoon, after Franklin diagnosed a breaker panel issue that 3 previous techs had misread, Earl handed him a coffee and said, "You remind me of the guys who actually give a damn." From Earl, that was a standing ovation. Franklin moved into a better apartment, 2 bedrooms, west side of Charlotte, a building with a working elevator. He sent $1,200 to Diane for tuition. She protested. He told her to shut up and cash the check. At a company-wide staff meeting in week 5, Gerald publicly recognized Franklin's impact. Craig Holloway stood in the back of the room, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes locked on Franklin like a man watching someone sit in a chair he believed was his. Craig Holloway had been with Ashford Property Group for 14 years. 14 years of showing up. 14 years of doing things the right way. The credentialed way. The corporate way, the way that looks good in a quarterly report and sounds right in a boardroom. He had a degree in facilities management from UNC Charlotte. He had certifications on his wall. He had a system. And then, Gerald Ashford hired a guy off the side of the highway. Not just hired him, promoted him. Put him in a role Craig had recommended 3 other candidates for. Candidates with degrees. Candidates with resumes longer than 1 page printed at a public library. Craig didn't hate Franklin. That's not how he would have described it. He would have said he was concerned. Concerned about standards. Concerned about process. Concerned about what happens when you let sentiment override structure. But if you'd watched his face during that staff meeting, the one where Gerald praised Franklin in front of 60 people, you wouldn't have called it concern. You would have called it what it was. Week 6, a Tuesday. Craig sat in his office on the 9th floor and opened Franklin's personnel file on his screen. He'd read it before, twice, but this time he was looking for something specific. He found it on the resume, under experience. U.S. Army, Vehicle and Facility Maintenance Specialist. Supervisory role, 4-person motor pool team. Supervisory role. Craig leaned back. 4 people, a motor pool. In the Army, that's a team lead. Technically a supervisory function, but in the corporate world, supervisory role implies something more structured. Performance reviews, budget oversight, HR authority. Franklin had none of that. He'd led a 4-man crew changing oil and replacing brake pads in the desert. Was it a lie? No. Was it an exaggeration? Maybe. Was it enough to build a case? Craig thought so. He drafted a formal complaint to HR and Gerald. Subject line: Personnel file discrepancy, Franklin Sutton. 3 paragraphs, professional tone, words like misrepresentation and due diligence and organizational risk. The kind of language that turns a gray area into a red flag if you frame it right. He saved the draft. Didn't send it yet. He had something else in mind first. Thursday, 8 a.m. Craig called Franklin into his office. Friendly tone, casual. Hey, got a priority assignment for you. The Meridian Building downtown, one of our highest profile properties. We've got a city inspector coming through next week for a routine compliance check. I need you on site to make sure everything's buttoned up. Franklin nodded. I'll head over this afternoon. Anything specific I should know about? Standard stuff. HVAC, fire suppression, electrical panels. You'll be fine. Craig smiled. Franklin thanked him and left. What Craig didn't tell him, what Craig deliberately, specifically, and knowingly withheld, was that the Meridian Building's main electrical panel had a known code violation. It had been flagged internally 4 months ago. The previous coordinator had documented it. A repair had been approved but never scheduled, buried in a backlog that Craig managed. Craig knew the violation was there. He knew the inspector would find it, and he knew that Franklin, as the coordinator on record, would be the one holding the bag. Monday, 10 a.m. The inspector arrived. Franklin walked him through the building, floor by floor, system by system. Everything was clean, until they reached the electrical room on the basement level. The inspector opened the main panel, looked inside, looked at Franklin. This breaker configuration doesn't meet current code. When was this last serviced? Franklin checked his records. Nothing. No service order, no flag, no documentation in any report he'd received since his first day. I don't have a record of this being flagged, Franklin said. I'll initiate a correction immediately. The inspector wrote it up. Violation. The coordinator on record, Franklin Sutton. That same afternoon, Craig sent 2 things to Gerald's desk. The inspection report, with Franklin's name circled, and the formal complaint about the resume discrepancy. Together, on the same day, they painted a picture. A man who inflated his credentials, a man who missed a critical code violation, a man who was either dishonest or incompetent, maybe both. Gerald sat behind his desk and read both documents. Then he read them again. His jaw tightened. Tuesday, 9 a.m. Franklin was called to the 14th floor. He walked in expecting a project update. Instead, he found Gerald sitting behind his desk, not in the chair across from him like the first meeting. Behind the desk, barrier up. Craig stood near the window, arms crossed. Sit down, Franklin. Franklin sat. Gerald's voice was different, controlled, measured. The warmth was gone. I'm going to ask you some direct questions, and I need direct answers. On your resume, you listed a supervisory role in the Army. What exactly did that entail? 4 people reported to me in the motor pool. I managed daily assignments, quality checks, and training for junior mechanics. If supervisory was the wrong word, I take responsibility for that. But I didn't fabricate anything. And the Meridian Building. The electrical panel. I was never briefed on a pre-existing violation. I've reviewed every document I was given when I took over that property. There's no mention of it. I can show you every report I've filed since day one, every flag, every work order, every inspection note. Gerald was quiet for a long moment. Craig shifted by the window. I went out on a limb for you, Franklin. I know you did, sir. I need to review everything. Until I do, you're on administrative leave, effective immediately. Franklin didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, didn't say what he wanted to say, which was look at the man standing by the window and ask yourself why he's smiling. He stood up, nodded. I understand. He walked out, took the elevator down to the lobby, carried a small box with his things, a coffee mug, a notebook, and his uniform folded neatly on top. Name patch facing up. F. Sutton. The receptionist watched him walk past. This time she didn't look away. He pushed through the glass doors and stepped into the parking lot. It wasn't raining, but it felt like it. He drove home, set the box on the kitchen counter. The uniform sat on top, still folded. He stared at it for a long time. Then he pulled his resume from the folder, the same one page, 30 cents at the library. He read every line, whispered to himself, barely audible, barely a voice at all. I didn't lie. He sat at the kitchen table, didn't call Diane, didn't want to lie to her again, didn't want to hear her worry. Just sat there, hands flat on the table, still. Earl Moore had seen this before. Not exactly this, not these names, not this building, not this man, but the shape of it, the machinery of it. The way a person with a title and a grudge could take someone good and grind them into dust using nothing but paperwork and timing. 3 years ago, a coordinator named Daniels, young guy, sharp, came up through trade school, had flagged a plumbing issue at one of Ashford's older retail properties. Craig had ignored the flag. When the pipe burst and flooded a tenant's storage unit, Craig buried the original report and let Daniels take the fall. Daniels was gone within a month. No investigation, no questions asked. Earl had kept his mouth shut that time. He wasn't proud of it. He told himself it wasn't his fight. Told himself he was 55 at the time, with a pension to protect, and a granddaughter whose college fund depended on him staying employed. All true. All cowardly. He knew it then. He knew it now. This time would be different. Wednesday morning, the day after Franklin was suspended, Earl sat down at his work computer in the maintenance office on the 3rd floor and started digging. He wasn't a tech guy. Took him 20 minutes just to figure out how to search archived emails by date and sender. But he was patient, and he was methodical. The same way he'd wired panels for 20 years, one connection at a time, no shortcuts. He found it in the sent folder of the shared facilities inbox. 4 emails, spanning 4 months. The first? A flag from the previous coordinator, Daniel's replacement, identifying the electrical code violation at the Meridian building. Date? January 14th. The second, Craig's reply. Acknowledged. Will schedule repair in Q2 budget cycle. Date, January 19th. The third, a follow-up from the coordinator asking for a timeline. Date, February 28th. The fourth, Craig's response. Deprioritized. Handle current backlog first. Date, March 3rd. 4 emails. A clear chain. Craig knew about the violation for 4 months. He never scheduled the repair. And 6 days before a routine city inspection, he assigned Franklin, a man who had never seen those emails, to be the coordinator on record for that building. Earl printed all 4, folded them into his jacket pocket, clocked out at 3 p.m. He didn't go to Craig, didn't go to Gerald, not directly, Gerald was management, and Earl had learned a long time ago that the fastest way to get buried is to walk into a corner office with accusations and no armor. Instead, he went to Brenda Collins. Brenda was Gerald's executive assistant, 50 years old, black, had been at Ashford Property Group for 18 years, longer than Craig, longer than most of the senior staff. She knew where everything was, who everyone was, and how every door in that building opened. Gerald trusted her the way generals trust their chiefs of staff, completely and without hesitation. Earl found her at her desk on the 14th floor. He didn't make small talk. "Brenda, I need you to look at something." He laid the 4 printed emails on her desk. She read them, one by one, slowly. Her face didn't change much, but her eyes did. They went from professional to something harder. Something that looked like a woman who had spent 18 years watching things happen in this building and had learned exactly when to stay quiet and when to move. This was a time to move. "Gerald needs to see these," she said. "Today." "That's why I'm here." Brenda picked up the emails, straightened them, looked at Earl. "Daniels, 3 years ago. Same thing?" Earl nodded. "Same playbook." Brenda was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and dialed Gerald's line. "Mr. Ashford, I have something that needs your immediate attention. It's regarding the Sutton matter." Pause. "No, sir, it can't wait." She hung up, looked at Earl. "Go home. I'll handle it from here." Earl stood, stopped at the door, turned around. "He's a good man, Brenda. Franklin. He's one of the guys who actually gives a damn." Brenda didn't look up from the emails. "I know." That same evening, 6 miles away, someone knocked on Franklin's apartment door. He wasn't expecting anyone. Diane was in Raleigh, Terrence was at work. He almost didn't answer. He opened the door. Eleanor Ashford stood in the hallway. No driver, no assistant. Just a 64-year-old woman in a blue coat, standing in a building with a working elevator that still smelled like someone else's dinner. Franklin froze. "Mrs. Ashford, you didn't tell me you were going to an interview that day, did you?" He stared at her. "No, ma'am." "Why not?" "Because it wasn't your problem to carry." Eleanor looked past him into the apartment. Small, clean. A folded uniform on the kitchen counter, a resume on the table. "May I come in?" He stepped aside. She sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he'd eaten dry cereal before the interview, the same table where he'd whispered, "I didn't lie," to an empty room. Eleanor looked at the uniform, looked at the resume, looked at Franklin. "Tell me everything." And he did. Thursday morning, 9 a.m., 14th floor. The boardroom had floor-to-ceiling windows facing south. Charlotte's skyline, cranes swinging slow against a white sky. Long walnut table, 12 chairs. The kind of room where decisions landed on people who would never see the inside of it. 6 people sat down. Gerald Ashford, head of the table, coffee untouched. Craig Holloway, right side, tablet ready, posture straight, the posture of a man who believed he'd already won. Franklin Sutton, left side, no tablet, just a stack of printed documents. Every maintenance report, every work order, every inspection note since day 1. Chronological, flagged with handwritten tabs. Brenda Collins, beside Gerald, a manila envelope flat on the table. Earl Moore, near the door, hands folded, silent. And at the far end, a chair no one expected to be filled, sat Eleanor Ashford. Craig saw her first. His fingers stopped moving. Gerald looked at his mother. "Mom, this is an internal matter." "I'm a board member, co-founder. Semi-retired doesn't mean invisible." She set her purse down like a woman who wasn't leaving. "Proceed." Gerald nodded. "Craig, Go ahead. Craig stood, smooth, practiced. Issue 1. Resume discrepancy. Mr. Sutton listed a supervisory role. His actual position was leading a 4-person motor pool team, a team lead function, not supervisory as understood in corporate management. This constitutes misrepresentation. Pause. Let it land. Issue 2. On April 14th, a city inspection at the Meridian building found a code violation in the main electrical panel. Mr. Sutton was coordinator on record. The violation was not flagged or addressed. This exposes the company to liability. He sat down, folded his hands, looked at Gerald like a man resting his case. Gerald turned to Franklin. Your response? Franklin spoke from his chair, steady, level. On the resume, 4 soldiers reported to me. I assigned tasks, ran quality checks, trained 2 junior mechanics from zero. If supervisory isn't the right corporate word, I own that. But I didn't invent anything. He opened his documents. On the Meridian building, 22 properties, 114 inspections, 31 flagged issues, 28 resolved within 5 days. The Meridian was assigned to me on April 8th. I received no documentation of any pre-existing violation. Nothing. He laid the pages on the table. Neat. Ordered. If that violation existed before me, someone knew, and that someone didn't tell me. Silence. Gerald looked at Brenda. Brenda. She opened the envelope. 4 printed emails. Laid them on the table, one by one. January 14th. The previous coordinator flags the electrical violation at the Meridian building. January 19th. Craig Holloway replies, acknowledges it, says he'll schedule repair in Q2. She placed the second email down. February 28th. Follow-up asking for a timeline. March 3rd. Mr. Holloway's response. Deprioritized. Handle current backlog first. 4 emails, 4 months. Undeniable. Mr. Holloway had knowledge of this violation for 4 months. Never scheduled the repair. And on April 8th, 6 days before an inspection he knew was coming, he assigned Mr. Sutton to the building without disclosing the issue. Patricia Gaines, HR director, picked up the emails, read each one, set them down. Turned to Craig. You knew about this violation for 4 months. You assigned Mr. Sutton 6 days before a scheduled inspection. Then you filed a complaint against him for the result. Craig's posture shifted. Straight became stiff. I was testing his readiness. By withholding critical information, I was protecting the company from an unqualified enough. Gerald stood. Not loud. Didn't need to be. Franklin Sutton came to this company because my mother told me about a man who stopped in the rain to help a stranger. He didn't know who she was. He didn't ask for anything. He was late to the only interview he'd gotten in 5 months. And he stopped anyway. He turned to Craig. You had every credential, every advantage, 14 years. And you used your position to destroy a man who earned his place here. Character isn't what you do when people watch. It's what you do when they don't. Silence. Craig, your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Craig stood, picked up his tablet, walked out. The door clicked shut. Gerald turned to Franklin. You're reinstated. Promoted to Senior Facilities Director. You report directly to me. Franklin stood, hands steady, the same hands that changed a tire in the rain, trembled on an offer letter, laid flat on a kitchen table in the dark. Steady. He shook Gerald's hand, turned to Eleanor. She took his hand in both of hers, held it. No words needed. In the hallway, Earl was waiting. Handshake. Then a brief hug, one pat on the back. Told you, you're one of the guys who gives a damn. Franklin laughed, the kind that breaks something loose you forgot you were holding. Brenda passed them, didn't stop, just nodded, small, precise. The nod of a woman who did what needed doing and didn't need thanks for it. Franklin took the elevator down, walked through the lobby. The receptionist looked up. He walked past her, uniform on, name patch forward, F. Sutton. She looked down. He pushed through the glass doors and stepped into the sunlight. 6 months later, Franklin Sutton had an office. Not a big one. A glass-walled room on the 8th floor with a view of the parking garage and, if you leaned left, a sliver of the Charlotte skyline. He didn't care about the view. He cared about the door with his name on it. Franklin Sutton, Senior Facilities Director. On his desk, a framed photo of Diane in her nursing scrubs, taken the day she graduated. He'd paid her last semester, every cent of it. She'd argued for 2 weeks. He told her to shut up and graduate. She did. Next to the photo, a small toolkit, the same one from his truck. Socket wrench, pliers, voltage tester, flashlight. He didn't need them anymore. Not technically, but they sat there like a reminder of where he started and what his hands were worth. His phone buzzed. A text from Earl. A photo of Earl's granddaughter on her first day of kindergarten. Gap-tooth grin, backpack bigger than she was. Franklin smiled. Typed back, "She's gonna run the world." The second Tuesday of every month, Franklin drove to a diner called Rosie's, halfway between Eleanor's estate and his office. A booth by the window. 2 coffees, 1 slice of pecan pie they split down the middle because Eleanor insisted it was too much for one person. Which was a lie. Franklin had watched her eat an entire slice once and pretend she hadn't. This Tuesday, Eleanor had something different on her face. Not sadness, not worry. Something quieter. Purpose. "I've been thinking," she said, "about the fund." "What fund?" "The one I'm creating." She pulled a folder from her bag. Inside, a 1-page proposal. Clean, typed, official. The Sutton Ashford Skilled Trades Scholarship. For veterans transitioning to civilian careers. No degree required. Focused on mechanical, electrical, and facilities trades. Funded by the Ashford Family Foundation. Franklin stared at it. "You can't put my name on this." "I already did." "Eleanor, you earned it. Not by changing my tire. By being the kind of man who would." Franklin looked out the window. A long beat. The diner was quiet. Forks on plates, low conversation, the hiss of a coffee machine. "My dad used to say, 'You never know who's watching, so act like it matters.' I stopped believing that for a while." He paused. "I think I believe it again." Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Once. Firm. The way you seal a promise without saying the word. That evening, Franklin drove home on I-85. The same stretch, the same highway. Rain falling lightly. Not a storm this time, just a soft, gray mist. He saw a car on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. A young man standing beside it, hands in his pockets, looking lost. Franklin checked the clock. He had nowhere to be. He pulled over. The camera holds on Franklin's truck, parked behind the stranger's car on the shoulder of I-85. Rain misting. Hazard lights blinking in sync. 2 sets now, like a heartbeat. Franklin steps out, walks toward the young man. Same walk, same calm, same question. "You need a hand?" The screen fades. If this story hit you in the chest, even just a little, drop a comment and tell me, would you have stopped? Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Because stories like Franklin's, they deserve to be told. And people like Franklin, they deserve to be seen.